Are you ready to let life get really good without you getting in the way? Then this episode is for you. What you do when things get too good or too predictable says a lot about your nervous system, and it also says a lot about your trauma or wounds. In today's conversation, we're going to be diving into the conversation around what is it that you do in your personal life and also in your business when things become maybe a little bit too predictable or a little bit too easy or a little bit too good. This episode is specifically for you if you are someone who tends to have a lot of chaos in your life or in your relationships and or in your business. If you find yourself being on a roller coaster in your life and business, this is absolutely for you. And even if it's not, if you're in a really good place in your life right now, but you want to make sure that you don't sabotage it, this episode is for you. So in today's conversation, I'm going to be talking about some personal stories that I've had, experiences I've had, and realizations I've had. I'm also going to give you some practical things that you can do if you are bumping up against yourself, essentially, because that's always who we're bumping up against. Sometimes a hard pill to swallow, but let's be honest, that's the truth. So in today's conversation, we're going to be jamming on that. I'm going to give you some actual things that you can do to support yourself as you navigate through changes. So I moved across Canada about 7 months ago as I'm recording this episode, and I moved from Vancouver, BC to Eastern Canada. And for my entire life, I've always been someone who's been super, super busy. I've always had a lot going on, and I really do feel like that's a part of my personality. I thrive on change. And I remember moving across the country and with my partner, and I remember being in the backyard, sitting in the sun, and I remember I started to cry, and I was like, what is going on here? And I had this realization that I no longer had to tell an old story of pain. And this was specifically in the relationship department. So over the last couple of years, I started to get into writing my own music. And I have one song that's on Spotify right now. It's called Touch My Skin. Feel free to check that out if you want to. And essentially, this musical album that I had been working on was all about heartbreak. And I wrote a song or a book on heartbreak, which has not come out yet. It's about transforming past heartbreak into radical self-love. And so I'm sitting in the backyard and I'm crying. And I'm like, why am I crying? And then I'm also really happy, but I'm sad and I'm confused. I'm like, what is going on here? And I realized that I had been telling myself a story that I'm never going to be fully loved. I'm never going to be fully happy. And just about a year prior, I had this fear that I was never going to meet my person and I was never going to have kids. And then I'm sitting in our backyard together after moving across the country, which was a big change for me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I don't have to tell myself that story anymore. And that was really beautiful in a way, but also a little bit terrifying because my story and the life that I had been living for so long was I don't trust men, don't want to let a man fully in. And if I do, I'm going to get hurt. So I had to really unravel that over the upcoming months after we moved in together. And to be really honest, it was a bit of a bumpy road because I had a lot of my old programming, a lot of my old trauma come in the way and want to sabotage the relationship and want to create old situations from my past, bringing them into my new relationship. And so I wanted to bring up that story specifically because I really love talking about relationships, and relationships personally has been one of my greatest teachers and also biggest challenges. And they're complex. They're complex in a lot of ways because as we get truer and more self-aware with ourselves, the more we see how we're showing up and we're contributing to everything around us. And so that level of safety that I experienced when I first moved across the country felt really foreign to me. And in a lot of ways, I started to create obstacles. I started to create challenges that weren't necessarily there from a place of habit, from a place of familiarity, and from a place of, oh, well, this can't work. And I see this happen a lot in people's businesses. If you are a business owner, and maybe you're doing something in your business and it's going really well, do you pull the rug out? Do you make challenges? Do you create chaos where there is not chaos? Are you sabotaging things when they are going well? This really has to do with our nervous system. It has to do with how expanded we are with receiving what it is that we want, right? And a lot of the time, what happens with sabotage in intimate relationships as well as in business is we are used to an old story that we've been telling ourselves. And when we start to get external proof that that story may be outdated, a lot of the time our ego will want to come in and bring us back to our past, bring us back into our pain, bring us back into our struggle. And there is something inside of that experience that keeps the struggle alive, that keeps an old part of us alive, and also a part of us that keeps us safe. Because if we continue to go back to an old story, an old pain, and we recreate it in our business or in our intimate relationships, then we're safer because we know how to survive. We know how to show up if we continue to create that chaos, if we can continue to create that instability, if we continue to create the pain, we're familiar with the pain. And this is something I really want to talk about in our conversation today because the stories we tell ourselves are the stories and the reality that we create in our life. So when it comes to your business, when it comes to your relationships, when it comes to the success that you want to have, where are you potentially not allowing things to be good? And when things are good, where are you showing up and potentially recreating struggle, recreating pain, recreating separation, creating scarcity, creating competition, creating pain? And I think that as humans, we do that because we continue to recreate our past unless we become conscious creators of our future and we are so self-aware of how we're showing up. So let's talk a little bit about how this might be showing up in your business, if you have one, if you want to start one, or with your purpose or something that you are moving towards, a goal that you are creating right now where you are creating challenges. Okay. So this can look like having a really good idea that you want to start a podcast, that you want to get on stages, that you want to grow your business, that you want to start hosting events, that you want to have a really great relationship, whatever it is. You have this idea, you know it's something that is important to get the result that you want. Maybe it's going to the gym, it's eating healthy, whatever the thing is. And then you start going along, you start showing up and doing the thing that's going to get you the result. And then you just get off track. You get distracted. Life happens. Somebody in your family is unwell. You don't have a good night's sleep. You are really busy. You have a little bit more stress than normal. And then what happens? You drop the ball on the goal. You opt out from showing up for practice. You stop going to the gym. You don't food prep. You don't prioritize your relationship, and or you don't show up for the podcast, the project, the thing consistently. And you tell yourself the reason why you're not doing is because life got busy, life happened to you, when really beneath that reason, beneath that excuse, the truth is You're opting out. You're not showing up for your commitment, and you're recreating a pattern of yourself of not getting the result that you want. And it's easier for us to not get the result that we have never got, because then we can just validate our stories. We can validate our past. We can validate that life is happening to us, that we can't have the great relationship, that we can't have the super successful business, that we can't be wealthy, that we can't have fill in the blank. And really, beneath that is just a story, and you not committing to your greatness, you not committing to the relationship, you not committing to the goal, because underneath of the excuse is a belief system that I can't have what I want, or I'm not worthy of it. And it's just a story that you're telling yourself. And so there's three things that can happen when life gets really good, or business gets really good, or that relationship gets really good, that can sabotage you from continuing to have that thing that you really want. And that's you opting out from showing up consistently for it. That's you throwing an obstacle in and making a challenge that isn't there. Have you done that? I know I have. And then the third thing is pretending that there's something wrong with it. You're not excited about it. It's becoming too predictable. And so there must be something wrong. Maybe you need to pivot your business again. Maybe you need to launch a different course. Maybe you need to be in a different relationship. Everything feels too easy. And a lot of the time when we've had a lot of trauma or a lot of chaos in your life, discomfort is in the calm, is in the love, is in the you getting what you want. And the discomfort is there because it's unfamiliar. And it's really easy to sabotage it, maybe to find something wrong with your partner, or opt out and distract yourself from the relationship, or cause fights, or in your business, not show up for the thing because it's too easy. You're not motivated. You're not as motivated as you first were when you recorded your first podcast episode, or when you first started your business, or you're not doing the work that you know you need to do in your business because it's boring. But those boring things are actually bringing in what you truly want. And so a part of stepping into peace and stepping into having and creating what it is that you want in all areas of your life is understanding that there's a certain capacity that you have in your life of experiencing great things. And that when new great things are in your life, as you're moving towards that new goal, or you're expanding in that relationship to new levels of intimacy or love or trust or abundance or whatever it is, that you are going to have an upper limit that shows up, that wants you to get off track and go back to shrinking your energy, shrinking your goals, shrinking your desires. And in the shrinking is where we create the problems. I talk about this in my book, Turn Your Light On. I talk about upper limiting. I'm not the first person to talk about this. Gay Hendricks talks about this in his book, The Big Leap. I believe his book is called The Big Leap. And so anytime we're going to a new location, we are going to feel uncomfortable as we expand. So how do we continue to expand and not contract and self-sabotage? Well, a good practice is when you find yourself not wanting to show up for the thing that you committed to, the thing that you want. It's really about recommitting. And I really do feel like having a successful business, or having a successful relationship is about that recommitting to what it is that you want, and showing up even when you don't feel like it. Even when you don't feel like it, it's showing up anyways. And Alex Hermosi's wife, I think her name is Layla. I could be wrong, but she says, the quote, "fuck your feelings and follow the plan." And I think that's a really powerful statement for a few different reasons. Well, I tend to attract a lot of highly sensitive people, and I would consider myself a highly sensitive person. So, as a highly sensitive person, as someone who is emotional, it's important to know that emotions and feelings only last about 30 seconds to 90 seconds. And then after that, they go away and they shift if we feel them. But if you are letting your emotions dictate your success in your business or the success in your relationship, you are not going to get very far. You're going to have a lot of short-term relationships or relationships that feel like a roller coaster. And you're like, oh, it's just part of my personality. I attract people who are fill in the blank, right? Or you're someone who has multiple offers in your business and maybe they're not really all doing very well because you're constantly pivoting to that new exciting thing rather than hunkering down and really finessing one product and going all in. Maybe that looks like you start a podcast and then you stop a podcast. You start putting yourself out there and then you stop doing it as soon as it gets easier or you start getting results. Or when things get hard in your relationship or you reach a roadblock in your relationship or your business, and instead of opting in and learning new skills, you opt out and you go back to old patterns of coping, which could look like a lot of different things. It could be avoidance, it could be blaming, it could be looking elsewhere, it could be getting into fights that aren't really like don't really have a purpose just to create some sort of conflict. And this can actually be an addictive behavior. It's constantly creating conflict in our life or constantly being on the highs and lows of relationship ups and downs or business. So the question that I have for you today is, are you someone who feels like you're on an emotional roller coaster in your business or in your life? And are you ready to get out of that pattern and really truly create what it is you want? And if you're wanting to do that, some of the most important things that have been a game changer for me is being aware of my past and being aware of the old story that I've told myself. And we've talked about this in past episodes. The story that you tell yourself creates the story of your life. And sometimes an old story needs to die so a new one can be born. And so it's about being aware of the old story you've been telling yourself and also what is the new story that you want to step into when it comes to your success, when it comes to how you show up in your business, when it comes to how consistent you are, where it shows up with how you're showing up in your relationships. What is the new story that you are going to tell yourself? And the next thing that can support you in this space is finding a coach or guide who has gone to where you want to go. Finding a guide who is at the location of where you want to be. If that's in business, finding someone who is doing what you want to do and they're doing it well, they're steps ahead of you, and they can hold you accountable and give you that support so that when the obstacles show up, my friend, they can help you overcome them instead of you opting yourself out and sabotaging and creating chaos or challenges in your life that you really don't need. And then the third thing is finding a community. And oftentimes when you find a mentor, there's usually communities with that mentor that are also on the same journey as you that are going to support you in up leveling and becoming a new version of yourself. And I just want you to know that feeling that upper limit, feeling that stretch, feeling the almost addiction to challenge is normal. In my Speak to Scale program that I run, it's a 6-month container where I help people who are ready to tell their story, who are ready to grow their business, who are ready to create a personal brand, put themselves out there in a bigger way. And the upper limits that show up in the container are big. It's like, oh my gosh, what if I share this story? Are these people going to approve of me? What's my auntie going to think? What's this person going to think of me? And all of these things come to the surface, and all of these fears and emotions and stories that come to the surface in our life as we're navigating growth, it's all normal. But what we want to be aware of, what you want to be aware of is how you are navigating those growth cycles and what you're doing with your struggles. Are they getting you to opt out of your dreams and your desires, or are they getting you to opt in? And Yeah, that's really the conversation I wanted to have today was around are your stories, your challenges that are showing up internally, are they helping you continue to to be disciplined and show up consistently for your dreams and your desires and your relationships? And what you really want, or are they causing you to opt out and play small and recreate an old story? And you have the power of changing your life through changing your story and getting the right support. And if you are someone who is wanting to scale your business and get on stages and become known in your space of expertise and scale your business in 2025 and beyond, feel free to take a look at our Speak to Scale program below. It's such a powerful container if you are someone who is wanting to grow your brand in a big way this year. And so the question that I have for you today is, what is the story that you've been telling yourself around the thing that you've been challenged with? And what is the new story that you are ready to tell? And who is the mentor that you need to have in order to make those shifts, those growth periods easier for you? And what is the community that you need to join to get there? And I am so excited to let you know that all of this is possible when you commit to taking a look in the mirror and seeing your patterns and becoming an investigator of your patterns and then getting the right support. So I hope that you've enjoyed today's episode on upper limiting, on what happens when things get too good. And, one thing that really supported me years ago when I first started this business, my coaching business about 7 years ago, I had a yoga business before I got into coaching. I had a yoga and wellness business where we would go into corporations and do yoga and personal development. And I stepped into the coaching space, this business about 7 years ago. And I remember having a lot of upper limits with being successful in this new venture. And I also was going through a divorce at the time, and I really had to place all bets on myself and place all bets on myself winning. And so I would tell myself this quote that I got from Amanda Francis, who is a coach on the internet that I followed years and years ago. And this quote is, I am a powerful woman with massive work to do in the world, and I am highly compensated. I would tell myself that quote every single day as I started this business because I had many upper limits and it helped me really move through them. So what is the new story? What's the old story that you are ready to retire, my friend? And who is the right mentor to support you on up leveling and getting out of this space of chaos, roller coaster emotions in your relationships and your business, and getting on track to create the life and business that you truly desire? Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, please go ahead and write a review. It would mean so much to me. And feel free to email it to us as well at hello@radicallyaligned.com in order to be entered in to win a $2,000 program called Turn Your Light On that helps you wake up to who you are and who you're meant to be and remove those obstacles. We do a draw every single month, and we gift one of those programs to a lucky winner who has written us a review. So much love, and I look forward to diving into the next episode with you next week.